Hey guys, what's up? Dingo Crikey here with another episode review. This time we're going to be looking at Transformers Robots in Disguise episode 21. And this review will contain spoilers for episode 21 of Robots in Disguise and all of the events up to that point. And yes, this episode does actually contain some spoilers as we're nearing the end of season 1, kind of expecting a build-up, and we really haven't had it. But now, with Megatronus revealing himself to Steeljaw, we are getting some hints at what will be the plot for the finale of this season. Outside of that, though, this episode doesn't have much that's really relevant or affects the furthering of the story. There's a few little things here and there that are kind of serialized throughout episodes, but overall, not a whole lot. Still, there's a good amount of excitement in the episode, significantly more characters than we usually see, and lots of stuff like that. So let's get started. So the plot of the episode is basically Steeljaw and his pack of Decepticons taking over the Autobots base, and then we have the Autobots trying to find a way to get back inside before Steeljaw's pack can release the rest of the Decepticons who are locked in the stasis pods. I think the plot was carried out pretty well. I have a hard time getting a sense of peril from this show. Even in this episode, I'm not totally feeling it, but it did do a better job than many others. Steeljaw feels very confident, things seem almost hopeless for the Autobots, the intense music, all that kind of stuff. So I think it was done pretty well, though I had predicted they probably wouldn't free any of the Decepticons in this episode, which I thought was a little disappointing. I would have liked to see maybe someone like Quillfire get released and join Steeljaw's pack. It would have also helped the episode contribute to the bigger story. We do have some things throughout, as the Autobots' defense system is becoming more armed, and obviously Steeljaw uses that against the Autobots. We know how Steeljaw knows about that audio barrier, or whatever he does there. We get a little bit of backstory on him, so that's pretty cool. And in the scene where the Decepticons are trying to escape the pods, I like seeing some previous Decepticons rather than them just adding some random red shirts or something like that. If anything, I could see the whole invasion maybe contributing to a contempt with some of the Decepticons, especially with Thunderhoof, in regards to Steeljaw, who they might start viewing as an incompetent leader. And though I personally really like Steeljaw, I've got to kind of say I'm believing he's not the best leader at this point. When you see a guy start losing his temper as much as Steeljaw has recently, and his plans failing, you kind of start to get those vibes. If Steeljaw could win a little bit more, that might change it up, but it does work for good tension between him and Thunderhoof. That's kind of the main plot for the episode. As far as the subplot, we kind of have the whole lesson thing going on with Denny, I guess, learning that he is valuable despite the fact that he's in the midst of a bunch of giant robots. It comes off as being really corny, but I do think this one was handled better than some of the other message-type stories because it's a little bit more subtle, and it kind of makes sense how Denny's able to help them in this episode, though I felt like they spent a little bit too much time on it, and I didn't really enjoy seeing him take down Thunderhoof and Clamp Down. The whole Denny development wasn't in your face the whole time. It was actually only on a second viewing that I really picked up on that whole story they're trying to put in there. So that's not a bad thing. So we have Russell and Denny trying to stop the Decepticons when the Autobots are trying to figure out a way to get in. And then we also have Fix-It, and basically what all of the characters within the barrier are doing is just like a stalling the bad guys thing, which is kind of cliche, know where it's going, so it wasn't the most exciting thing to watch. Still, some funny moments here and there with Fix-It. Some of the Decepticon interaction was really good, but overall that was kind of mediocre. Now, once the Autobots find a way into the barrier, we have a big climax in the episode of Autobots versus Decepticons. Really did enjoy that battle. Drift versus Fracture, Bumblebee versus Steeljaw. A lot of cool stuff there. I don't think we've seen an Autobot versus Decepticon battle as good as some of them in Transformers Prime. I mean, as far as dramaticness, none of them have had really big things at stake or like character deaths, but they've been pretty cool. So overall, I think the plot for the episode was carried out pretty nicely. It is kind of a cliche situation. Good guys get tricked, bad guys infiltrate base, there's a lot of stalling, good guys find way in, big battle, everything ends happily. But it was still an entertaining episode, and it's not the worst trope storyline to see. One more thing about the plot, though, was obviously the big reveal at the end of the episode with Megatronus speaking to Steeljaw. Yeah, pretty much that's the most important thing that's happened with the Decepticons in a long time. And basically we have Megatronus reveal to Steeljaw that he was the one who caused the Alchemor to crash. And eventually, despite Steeljaw's ego, they work out a plan where Steeljaw will work for Megatronus in return for having Earth to himself. A few comments on this scene. It is cool to finally see Megatronus or the Fallen, but this was definitely way too abrupt in my opinion. Megatronus really hasn't had a proper introduction, and then he just shows up at the end of an episode. This is too much of what we see with Optimus Prime. Whenever he is thrown into the show, he is literally just thrown in there. He'll have his separate scenes basically like, oh, here's the serious toned, bigger story that is coming into play. But it doesn't feel like it's woven into the story very well. I've kind of had a hard time deciding whether this show is too slow-paced or fast-paced, because we haven't really seen any important things happen, but I feel like it just rushes through material or jumps into huge threats all of a sudden and then gets really small scale again. I think the problem with the show is that it doesn't spend time where it really needs to. We could have had time developing Optimus Prime's story, maybe showing flashbacks with the other Autobots of giving them character development, but also kind of building up a bigger story that's going to be relevant in the long run. And, also giving some backstory on different Decepticons and Megatronus as well. But they just throw that stuff at the audience and then spend all this time on like showing Denny and Russell these little funky stories between the Autobot characters, and I see that as one of the show's major problems. Outside of that, I did enjoy seeing Megatronus. It was a little frustrating to watch Steeljaw in this scene, just being someone who's kind of liked Steeljaw at this point and realizing how stupid he kind of is. Like, this guy reveals himself as this big Decepticon, and whether he is or not, Steeljaw doesn't know how to just play along, basically. Like, if you're dealing with someone who's potentially really powerful, you would think you just kind of play along and not make him too angry. Yeah, I don't see things ending well for Steeljaw. He'll probably rush into things against Megatronus and end up getting killed or severely damaged because of that whenever they meet up. There's no way he's actually going to be able to beat him, so was nice knowing you, Steeljaw. But the underdogs never really win in Transformers, which is definitely unfortunate. I mean, couldn't Starscream permanently kill Megatron once? It would be really cool to see Steeljaw beat Megatronus. I doubt that's going to happen. Anyways, that's just personal quirks with that whole situation. Anyways, it was cool to get an idea of where the plot is going overall, and I guess it was a pretty cool scene. As far as characters in this episode, we did get a lot of them, obviously most of the Autobot characters, along with a lot of the Decepticon ones. And outside of Denny, to some extent, no one is really the overall focus. As far as the Autobots go, main things that stuck out were a few funny lines from Sideswipe, and seeing Bumblebee in the position where he has to be a more serious leader, under pressure. That is really entertaining as well. As far as the Decepticons go, really cool that all of them got some lines. Even Fracture has some in this episode. Most of the voice actors are really great in this show, but I feel like the ones for the Decepticons do an especially good job on making really vivid characters. Steeljaw, Thunderhoof, Clampdown, all of them are really cool. The only one I don't really like is Underbite. Not saying he's a bad voice actor, but he's just kind of an annoying character in my opinion. And we get to see all of the Decepticons in action, whether that is physically fighting the Autobots or like verbally having arguments with each other. It's a lot of fun and it builds them up as more memorable characters. Real quick, I should probably mention Kickback too. Only brief scene with him, but it was cool to see that homage to the G1 character and being a grasshopper. Kind of wish they would have taken his original color scheme. Not that I think it always has to be G1 accurate necessarily, but just to change up the colors of them resembling their Earth counterparts so much. And he seems like a pretty cool character, would like to see more of him in the future. Anyways, I'm going to wrap things up there. Overall, I would probably give this episode a rating of a 7 out of 10. It was pretty good, but leading up to the finale, it doesn't bring a lot to the table and has some slow points. Nevertheless, action's really cool and a lot of good character moments, so I think that's a fitting rating. Anyways, those are just my thoughts on it. You guys can leave yours in the comment section below. Did you enjoy this episode? Are the Decepticon characters more or less likable at this point? And what about Megatronus' introduction? Do you like the prospects of him as a villain? Or maybe he just seems like another boring big bad as some of the ones in the past? Drop off your thoughts in the comment section below, along with any topic suggestions you have for Robots in Disguise, Transformers 5, Combiner Wars, or more Transformers related stuff. That's all for now. Stay tuned for more Transformers news and commentary. Thanks for watching, and have a good one, guys. I will see you soon.